And we're back with our guest, Patrick. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So your name's Patrick, but you also go by SorenWraithHeart. Where does that name come from?
Actually, SorenWraithHeart is kind of my pen name, if you will. And it came around when I started an original story that I called Wraithing Hearts. It's a high fantasy story, and I kind of like the name Wraithheart, which is actually came from one of the characters, the King of the Four Horsemen, who is one of the main bad guys. And I've always liked the name Soren, and I thought, hey, that could be a good username.
Now, I see on your channel you have a series, Pokemon Stadium 2. Now it's a older series, but it's a classic game, but it is an older game. What made you choose? I guess I wouldn't call it retro because I guess nowadays it would kind of be retro. I'm getting old, so what made you choose an older game?
Well, I guess you could say it's more of a personal childhood thing. Yeah, nowadays it would be considered retro in a sense, but I've always been a fan of the Pokemon games, and I've never actually done a Let's Play before. So I thought one of the easiest ones to start out with is the turn-based Pokemon Stadium 2, which I played a lot of as a kid. It was probably my favorite of the Pokemon console games.
Cool. Yeah, mine too. Well, I never had Pokemon Stadium 2. My friend had Pokemon Stadium 2. I had Pokemon Stadium. But both were amazing. So when you're getting ready to record, do you have any rituals like getting a cup of tea or, moving your computer to a particular place or getting particular things together? Like, what's your ritual to record?
It's actually a fairly simple process. A lot of times I would get ready to play. I would just kind of take a few deep breaths, and a lot of times I would have I like to get some spiced tea right next to me because that always steadies my nerves. And after I take a few sips of that, I just get right into recording. And a lot of times, no drinks or no breaks in between. I just go in and start.
What do you have any future series planned?
Yes, actually. So recently I've begun to create a Dungeons and Dragons web series called Critical Hit, where I talk about D&D over the years and how it's changed, talking about the various races, classes, and miscellaneous topics that could be fun to go over, such as, fireballs or meteors, lightning bolts, necromancy, and just a bunch of other stuff. And the first couple episodes are sticking mostly around the mechanics and the history behind it. And as I go through the episodes, they'll just get broader and broader with more eclectic questions and topics.
So what are your top 3 must-play games right now?
Top 3 must-play games. Oh boy, that's a hard one, honestly. But if I had to pick at the moment, that would probably be Majora's Mask 3DS. Mm-hmm. Really loving it. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. I'm replaying it after a couple of years. Really enjoying it. And lastly would have to be The Last Story for the Nintendo Wii, which is a creator of Final Fantasy, and I find that is probably one of the best games I have ever played in my entire life.
Now, the Final Fantasy franchise, are you a big fan of all of them?
That I am, actually. I've played through all of them and beaten about half of them. My personal favorites of the series, aside from the spin-off game, was the Final Fantasy 13 series. And I just felt that engaged me the most, about as much, if not a little bit more, than Final Fantasy 7, surprisingly enough.
Now, I'm not too familiar with the franchise, but is 13 the one most people like don't like, or is it like earlier ones?
It's that's the one that a lot of people didn't really like, especially the first game in the series. Now, while they really enjoyed the story and a lot of the characters were very engaging, the game was usually criticized for being too linear, in which it really is. It's just a straight path, and it shows the markers of where you need to go. But I think what counterbalances it is the difficulty, which is to be expected, but it is one of the hardest Final Fantasy games that I've ever played, and I don't know what everyone's problem is, but I personally don't mind the linearity. And with the next game, the other two games in the series, they made it more open world, but I still think, and so they kind of fixed the linearity, but I just enjoyed all three about the same, I would guess.
So one thing that really stood out to me about your channel is the fact that you actually show your face, which is different to most gamers that I've seen. Was that like a conscious decision that you made, or do you think it actually helps your channel in any way?
I believe it does, actually, because while a lot of gamers like to hide their faces, since mine is more of a variety channel other than just straight Let's Plays, I find it would be cool to show my face and like PewDiePie and Markiplier and them, and I think that is actually a good way. So it gets people to tell who you are, so that way they're not trying to picture, what do you look like? I don't like his voice. He sounds like a 12-year-old. And I figure as long they can actually know who you are while still keeping yourself, your personal, super personal details a secret, I would say.
Who are some of your YouTube idols or inspirations?
Oh, that's an easy one. Well, when I first started looking into YouTube many, many years ago, 7 years ago, I didn't really have any idols, but now I find within the past couple of years, I've come across people such as, well, the really most well-known YouTubers such as Rhett and Link, Tyler Oakley, Hannah Hart, Mamrie Hart, PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Marcus Butler, and just many others. The ones that, even though they are the most, they are some of the most famous YouTubers, but they're also very personal. They don't hog the spotlight, and they don't really let a lot of the fame get to their head.
I like those groups of people, except for PewDiePie. I don't dislike PewDiePie. I just never seen one of his videos before. So
yeah,
he kind of be like, I don't ever remember. Like, I remember when I first started watching YouTube, I would watch Shane Dawson, and then I got into the British crew with, Zoe, Alfie, Marcus, all of them. But I don't ever remember, like, it was just like, bam, he was at the top, PewDiePie out of nowhere.
Yeah, that always made me kind of laugh, seeing PewDiePie, in which, again, a lot of these YouTubers I never really came across, including the British scene. And PewDiePie just also when I looked at, okay, he's the top YouTuber, but why? And then I looked at, what his channel specializes in, nothing but Let's Plays, and just how quirky he is. It actually kind of surprised me that he managed to jump up as quickly as he did and sort of maintain the world record holder for most subscribed user on YouTube. And I'm thinking, holy shit.
So you have, for 24 hours, right? You get a login to someone's YouTube channel. It could be someone you hate or someone you love. You can do whatever you want on their channel, delete all their videos, make your own video. Whose login do you want?
Oh God, that's the first time I've ever actually heard that question. That's a tough one. I would have to say, oh God, probably Hannah Hart, and I would do sort of a play on her My Drunk Kitchen. I would sort of imitate her style and be like, hello, I'm Hannah Hart's older brother. Or so just have a little bit of fun with that. That's a good question. I've never given that a whole lot of thought.
Yeah, I don't even know how to really answer it myself. I just wanted to see what your thoughts on this. I think we had like last year, before the end of the year, we had a bunch of YouTubers say, I'm done next year. This is it. I believe Kingsley said like he was done, but he's still going. What do you think about like these YouTubers saying, "Oh, I'm gone," and then they're like, "No, I'm staying."
I actually kind of have to laugh at that because I look at a lot of these YouTubers and I think they definitely have a love-hate relationship with YouTube and all the YouTubers who subscribe to the videos. I think it gets to a point where once you get so many videos, once you've been doing it for so long, you kind of get that little mindset, okay, it's the end of the year. I thought, this would be a good time to completely put the series finale, if you will, of my channel and then just never touch it again. But then they start to have thinking about it and they're regretting and going, oh, but I don't know. I kind of want to continue to make, I know the fans will miss me and I can't disappoint them. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to continue my channel, even if it kills me.
And then I also think there's the element of, well, I mean, like a lot of them, like, let's say Tyler Oakley 2 years ago was like, okay, I'm done. It's just like, well, what are you going to do now? Like now we can now we can say, well, he's on TV. He does other stuff. But back then, like, what else was he going to do?
What's funny is when you look at Tyler Oakley, and last year, I mean, he had hit like 6 months earlier, last summer, he ended up hitting 6 million subscribers, and 6 months prior to that, he ended up hitting 1 million subscribers. And it's one of those, back then, a couple years ago, I'd imagine be getting tired of going full time for YouTube, but now that he's at that level of everyone else, you see him branching out to going to conventions and being on TV. And I think it really is just kind of a judgment call at the time when you really take the time to think about what is it you really want to do. Like, are you going to continue? Are you going to take a hiatus or a sabbatical or something? I think it just really depends.
I guess I have a question. So you're from Colorado Springs. How does that affect being a YouTuber? Like, is that a normal thing to be a YouTuber where you're from? Like, does your friends or family know about your channel?
Yes, they do, actually. A lot of my friends and a couple of family members, they do know about my channel, and I mainly just tell them what I do. But I still keep my deeply personal information a secret, like last name and such, for obvious reasons. But I think Colorado it's sort of an in-between spot, because while it is a very popular geeky spot in terms of for a lot of video games and anime, and it's basically the Air Force capital of the U.S., Colorado, I noticed there aren't really a whole lot of YouTubers in Colorado. There's a small scene, from what I recall, up in Denver. Just not a huge community, but a small knit community from what I researched. And I think would be cool to be able to branch out through Colorado and make it a bit bigger, because though it makes it kind of hard when you're competing with Los Angeles and New York, where everyone else is, everyone moves to there. So it makes it kind of hard. But Colorado, I think, could actually grow into a really big YouTube community.
So if your channel ever like really truly blew up, would you ever consider moving to one of those big cities like Los Angeles or New York?
No. I'm going to come out and say it right now. The only way I would actually move away from Colorado is if I got a job offer pretty much that I couldn't refuse, very, very, very high paying job. I would want to have, being known on YouTube would be nice, but I kind of would also want to have an actual career, I guess, and and if I got to that point, do videos part-time as part of my personal life. But I would not want to move to Los Angeles or New York because, for one, too many people living there all at once, and number two, it's expensive. It's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think I would rather stay in Colorado if I can manage it.
I make vlogs and I'm really bad at games, and I'm always curious with gamers. Like, exactly how much time do you spend playing games in your own free time versus playing games online for your channel?
That actually is kind of a varied factor because when I was younger, I played a lot of video games. I clocked in a lot of hours, not super heavy because of, well, school and whatnot, but I did play a lot of video games. And as I got older, I still got into my video game moods. But for the past couple of years, it hasn't been, I'd say for about the past year, it hasn't been as much. I've really cut back on playing a lot of video games because I would just not be really in the mood, I would say. I guess it really depends. It really depends on the mood.
So how do you feel about YouTubers branching out from what they usually do? Like, you have Shane Dawson. He's writing a book. He has a podcast. He's directing movies now. It's kind of the same thing with, I guess, Joy Graceffa and Daily Grace. Do you think it's a good thing to branch out, or do you think it's smarter to, I guess, stay in your own lane?
Well, I think that people are usually passionate about what they do. And I believe even if you stick with the main aspect of your channel for the most part, eventually you get to a point where you kind of need to branch out a bit to where people look at you as being versatile. And I think that really helps a person because it lets people know more about them and what it is that kind of drives them, why they like to do what they do.
When you stop recording and you log off, I don't log off. Who logs off? But when you step away from the computer, what do you do?
Most of the time, as soon as I'm done recording, I usually just back away, take a little bit of a breather, and then if I have the time, most of the time, I want to try and just get right into editing and piecing it together so I can get it uploaded as soon as possible. But unfortunately, I get distracted very, very easily, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a sense. And you know how they say, you're your own worst critic? I'm that way. I will take a look a lot of times at what I have recorded, and then I'll sit there for a minute and go, I could have done that differently, but you know what? I'm going to put my fate in the hands of the people, of the YouTubers.
I feel the same way. Only thing about like editing yourself is like it's funny. When I first started recording, I hated the sound of my voice, and then I got used to it, and then I started hating it again.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as me because my voice constantly fluctuates. A lot of times it will sound a little bit higher, other times it will naturally deepen, but for the most part, it's always remains sort of a slight, not really nasally voice, but I hear it recorded back and I'm going, oh God, that sounds so terrible. But then it's to a point where, looking at other YouTubers, there's some who have a weirder voice than I do. So it's one of those, oh, well, okay, I guess my voice isn't as bad. I can get used to this.
That is a really great motivator. I've done that. Because a lot of people say, like, to be on the top of YouTube, you have to be good looking and you have to have a good voice and you have to. And I'm like, well, at first I kept buying into it because I'm like, okay, PewDiePie isn't really bad looking. And then I don't know. There's a bunch of YouTubers that are, like can do modeling right after their video, and it's just. And but then you get to some YouTubers, and then I'm like, they're just regular folks, and they can do it.
Yeah, it is always kind of funny when you were mentioning a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, to be popular on YouTube, you got to be extremely good looking, have a great voice." I say to hell with that. Well, I see you should just be who you are, and if you happen to be, I want to say, really blessed, if you're just naturally good looking without enhancements, then hey, cool. That's good for you. If you're just an average looking Joe, then you roll with it and don't really give a crap about what other people say and just keep doing what you do.
So what makes your channel, or what do you feel about your channel that makes it unique compared to others?
Well, I think in the long run, one thing I definitely like about it is that it is sort of a mix of different channels or not really channels, a mix of different styles to where it's one part is for gameplay, the other part is for a web series, and the other part would just be daily vlogs of not really so much about my life, but more just assorted topics. And I find that there aren't enough YouTubers that can branch out and have 3 to 5 separate types of videos all going on at once. And I think in a way that kind of gives me a little bit of an advantage because I'm able to spread out amongst every type of YouTuber.
So speaking of like spreading out and stuff, so like Philip DeFranco started SourceFed. You got the Creatures. What do you think of like YouTubers creating groups, but they're taking sort of the old media route with like creating a network within this platform of YouTube? What do you think of taking like the old media methods?
What exactly do you mean by old media methods?
Well, like YouTube has, you can just, everyone could be on their own and they could all just collaborate, but why, they don't have to necessarily create a company that has a bunch of YouTube channels, like creating a network of YouTube channels. They could just have their own YouTube channels. Like most people do. Like we just have our YouTube channels and we collab with other people. But people like the Creatures are like working to create a company of YouTube channels.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a good idea. I mean, do whatever you have to do. If that's something you really want to do, then go for it. And it really, I think it'll bring a lot of people closer together, creating this network or this company, if you will, because it just allows for people to come together and branch out their ideas and be able to just have multiple inputs going all at once and figuring out, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Can we make this work? And I think it just spreads out and goes off of there. And I think everyone gets to bounce off of each other.
So how do you feel when people make the assumption that gamers don't work as hard as bloggers or musicians or, I guess, other content creators? So I feel like that's something that a lot of people, that's an assumption that goes around a lot.
Yeah. The way I see it is you get a lot of these people that would make those kinds of assumptions, but the way I see it, everything you do, no matter what it is, whether you're gaming or vlogging, it is your own, it is an art form all in itself. And while for some things may not take as much time to do, I think gaming channels are excellent, because when you really think about it, there are these people that are taking the time to sit there and, maybe have a break in between, but sit there and record for hours on end, like an 8-hour session of just doing nothing but gaming and recording, and then having to eventually edit out some parts or slip-ups or even bloopers, if you will. And I think that, like with most other things, it can be really taxing on a person when they're putting in that much effort and energy to showcase a game and be able to constantly talk about it off the cuff. So I think the level of work is about equal between all the YouTubers.
Mm-hmm. As someone that's done like most stuff, I mean, I've never done like a beauty or makeup haul, but I have dabbled in gaming. Gaming is a lot harder than people think, because it's not just people think maybe if you're playing with somebody on the couch, maybe that's easier, but actually sitting there by yourself and trying to be funny and talk at the same time, but still pay attention to the game and knowing that the audience, it takes a lot more than people, I think, realize.
Oh, it definitely is. And I knew a person who was, I met a guy who was a professional gamer throughout high school, and he did Halo and he participated in tournaments and whatnot, and he had to clock in 16 hours every single day for the company that he worked with, and it just took a big toll. And it's the same thing with gamers. When you're by yourself, you will be exhausted because you're kind of being a one-man army. You don't have any banter to play off of. You just have to figure out, it can be hard to figure out how to properly engage your audience while still being yourself and being funny, and know when to make jokes and when to comment on the right parts. It really is a tough job.
So what if YouTube was gone tomorrow? What exactly would you do? What would you do with your time instead of that you would have put into your channel?
Admittedly, although it would have been, it would be difficult if YouTube was suddenly gone tomorrow, because I'll admit it, I spend a good amount of time on there. But if it was gone, I think things would just go back to a normal pace, if you will. It would be a bit less than exciting, but I would be able to make it work, because that would just kind of give me an incentive to go back and do stuff that I normally did before YouTube, and be able to and get out more and do stuff. So in one way, it's a double-edged sword. One way it would be interesting, but at the same time, it would be tough.
Final question. It's gonna kind of put you on the spot. Okay, so are you ready?
Bring it.
Okay.
Bring it.
I'm a newcomer. I'm new to YouTube. I come across your channel. Why should I subscribe?
The reason why I would want you to subscribe to my channel is because I can promise you that I would provide a wide variety of entertainment in various forms, whether it be games, vlogs, web series, you name it. I will be able to communicate to you just what makes me who I am, and you'll get to connect with me on a personal level, no matter what it is I'm doing.
Thank you so much for coming, Patrick. It was great having you. Hopefully we'll have you again in the future.
Of course, I had a really good time. This was very nice. Your questions were very well thought out, and I can tell you guys have done this many times, so I would say you guys are well beyond professional for stuff like this, and I look forward to to more stuff. Ah, yes. And if you want more Soren-y goodness, you can follow me on YouTube at SorenWraithHeart and my Twitter page, also at SorenWraithHeart, for frequent updates. And look forward to new episodes of Critical Hit every Monday and or Tuesday, depending on how fast I get them